3 Dates and a Breakup is the 19th episode of the 4th season of Frasier. This is directed by Jeff Melman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. And it starts off in Cafe Nervosa, and we have a great line from Frasier, and they're talking about the biscotti and how that they don't have as many nuts in, and Frasier remarks, fewer nuts, more money, because the price has gone up. And then he realises that's also what he's trying to achieve with his career. One might say an insensitive comment, but the humour is definitely there. Frasier and Niles are also preparing for a benefit that Frasier is hosting, and Frasier is giving Martin and Sherry tickets to an event, so they're out of the apartment. And we do have a subplot with Roz. Roz is in Cafe Nervosa at the beginning. She's been out for a run, so she obviously looks a bit sweaty and dishevelled, and she then sees somebody from her high school, and she's now worried that he's going to tell everybody she knows back home that she looks sweaty and dishevelled. It's an absolutely fine part of the narrative. It's definitely filler. It works well, but I don't really have any thoughts on it. We're then in Frasier's apartment, and it's beautifully set up. The lighting is absolutely perfect. We have loads of guests mingling, and the outfits, the costumes are absolutely gorgeous, beautiful atmosphere. And Frasier very quickly gets a woman's phone number, and then he quotes Alexander Pope and gets another woman's phone number. I will admit, quoting Pope is a very good way to get my phone number. And then Niles tried to get somebody's number. Frasier wasn't even trying, but Niles tries, and he tells Frasier, her lips said no, but her eyes said, read my lips, which I rather liked. And Frasier refers to himself as catnip. And then Niles responds to that, I think I feel a furball coming up. Very quotable episode, a lot of great moments in this. And Frasier tries to do a nice thing by getting Niles a date with somebody, with a woman called Kimberly. And she's played by Rebeccah Bush. And he words it in a way that makes it seem like he's talking about himself in third person. He says that there's a doctor who's too shy to come up to her and ask for a date. And of course, I guess not unreasonably, Kimberly thinks that he's talking about himself, and she gives him her phone number as well. We're then down at KCL, and Frasier is boasting to Roz about his 3 dates that he's having on 3 consecutive nights. Roz wants to send a glamour photo of herself to John. She's clearly paranoid about this. And then Norm calls. Norm, he got a Norm from me. When Frasier said Norm Peterson, I did indeed shout Norm at the laptop. And it's just very brief. Frasier had obviously called him to boast about his 3 dates, and Norm phoned him back at KCL. We don't get to hear Norm or anything, but just the mere mention of Norm Peterson, it made me rather happy. We're then back in the apartment. Daphne is using a rather deep American accent to book a restaurant table. And it's actually quite funny because the accent sounds, I mean, to my ears, it sounds absolutely fine. If I was American, I might think differently, but it sounds convincing. But the moment she switches, Jane Leeves is absolutely fantastic. And the moment she switches from her very deep American voice to her kind of high-pitched English voice, it's just so funny. Going from one to the other I thought was brilliant, and Jane Leeves is fantastic. And then obviously Daphne goes out and Kimberly arrives. It seems like the evening is going well. Frasier did tell a couple of lies, saying that he loves dogs and that he would like a big house with as many dogs as he wants, and also that he's just become vegan. And then Martin and Sherry come home, and they just so happen to mention that Frasier likes veal, and then it turns out Frasier had locked Eddie in the back room, and Eddie comes scampering out, and Kimberly is annoyed at all of these things that Frasier has said. And to be fair, Kimberly overreacted, because Frasier did say he's recently become vegan. So Martin and Sherry might have been referring to the fact that veal was a meal that Frasier loved. They might not be fully aware of his new veganism approaches. So I feel like that was unfair for Kimberly to kind of automatically assume Frasier was lying. Eddie being locked in the room, yeah, that's not great, but she didn't even wait to see if he was an aggressive dog with a muzzle or something. I mean, that's probably still not a good reason to lock the dog in, but it's not completely unheard of. If you go to somebody's house, they will put the dog in another room. particularly if they're not sure if you're scared of the dog or if you're coming over with small children. It's not completely unheard of for somebody to put a dog in a room for a brief period of time. So I definitely think Kimberly did overreact to the situation. I don't necessarily agree with the way she responded to things. Maybe it was a knee-jerk reaction to what she believed was being lied to, which, to be fair, she was being lied to. But she didn't give Frasier a chance to explain. So I didn't really care when she left because I instantly no longer liked her because I didn't believe her actions. We then have the following morning. Martin and Sherry go into the kitchen and they're talking about breakfast. Sherry wants to have Chinese food and she suggests they eat it with the chopsticks. And Martin says, no, I don't want to. They don't work. And Sherry kind of digs into him a little bit about this. And Martin, he gets a little bit annoyed because Sherry doesn't seem to listen when he says he doesn't want to do something. And he's sick of her trying to make him do things he's clearly said he doesn't want to do. And then to prove she wasn't taking him seriously, she played chopsticks on the piano. And then Frasier and Daphne are coming up in the elevator together. They come into the room and Martin and Sherry are in the kitchen arguing. And they come out and then the next thing we know, Sherry is coming from the bedroom having gathered her things and all she says is, so long kids, it was nice knowing you, and leaves. And then we have the text on screen, to be continued. Honestly, I don't like Sherry. I find her so irritating. If she makes Martin happy, that makes me happy. But I don't like it when she's on screen. I really don't like the character. I think the performance is absolutely brilliant. I think that Marsha Mason does a great job with the character. But that still doesn't make her a likeable character. But we will talk more about the to be continued when we get to the next episode. 3 Dates and a Breakup is definitely a good episode. Norm Peterson getting a mention definitely made my heart sing. Everything flowed really well. The padding with Ross's story was absolutely fine. I don't think it took up far too much room at all. And the main narrative developed really well. Pacing was really good. Some really brilliant quotes in this. Absolutely loved it. Definitely a solid episode and more on the to be continued when we get to the next episode.